goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva the author. Shunvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyanta Stohi Abhadrani Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Praeshu by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of God who is praised with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 9, Prahlada pacifies the Lord with prayers. Text number 44. So I'll just chant the Sanskrit and then everyone can repeat the word for word. Prayena deva munayo swabhimukti kama maunam charanti vijanena parata nishta naitan vihaya kripanan vimumuksha eko nanyam tvad asya sharanam brahmato nupasye.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you tell me the verse? I will share my screen.
7944.
7944. Okay.
Prayena.
Prayena.
A little quicker next time. Generally, in almost all cases.
Generally, in almost all cases.
Oh my Lord.
Oh my Lord.
I'm sorry. Deva.
Deva.
Oh my Lord.
Oh my Lord.
Munaya.
Munaya.
The great saintly persons.
The great
saintly persons.
Sva.
Swa.
Personal.
Personal.
Own.
Own.
So it's personal, comma, own. Vimukti kamaha.
Vimukti kamaha.
Ambitions for liberation from this material world.
Ambitious for liberation from this material
world.
Maunam.
Maunam.
Silently.
Silently.
Charanti. They wonder.
They wonder.
And then it's in brackets, in place like the Himalayan forest.
In place like the Himalayan forest.
Where they have no touch with the activities of the materialist.
Where they have no touch with the activities of the materialist.
So that's, Charanti means all that. Vijane.
Vijane.
In solitary places.
In solitary places.
Na.
Not.
Para artha nishtaha.
Para artha nishtaha.
Interested in working for others.
Interested in working for others.
By giving them the benefit of the Krishna consciousness movement.
By giving them the benefit of the Krishna consciousness movement.
By enlightening them with Krishna consciousness.
By enlightening them with Krishna consciousness.
Not. Etan. These. Vihaya. Leaving aside. Kripanan. Fools and rascals. Engage in materialistic activities who do not know the benefit of the human form of life.
Engage in materialistic activities who do not know the benefit of the human form of life.
Very good. Vimumukshe. I desire to be liberated and to return home back to Godhead.
I desire to be liberated and to
and to
return back to
return
Godhead.
back to Godhead.
Ekaha,
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 alone.
alone.
Na,
na,
not.
not,
Anyam,
anyam,
other.
other,
Tvat,
tvat,
but for you.
but for you.
Asya,
Asya,
of this.
of
of
this.
this,
Sharanam,
Sharanam,
shelter.
shelter.
Haramataha,
Brahmataha,
Brahmataha,
of the living entity rotating and wandering throughout the material universes.
of the living entity rotating and wandering throughout the material
material
universes.
universes.
Anupasye,
Anupashye,
Say,
do I see.
do I see?
Translation. My dear Lord Nrsimhadev, I see that there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your Lord's feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. So it's I'm going to, of course, read the purport, but before I do, it's interesting how Prahlada Maharaj, 5-year-old boy, he wasn't interested in just liberating himself, but he saw that there are many saintly people, and that's what they do. They go to the Himalayas, they go to the forest, they meditate in silence and just interested in their own deliverance. But he wasn't interested in his own deliverance. He wanted to also deliver everyone else. He doesn't want to just be liberated alone. So, and he knows these people, they're poor fools and rascals, he says, because they're in ignorance. They don't know. And where are they? They're not in the Himalayas. They're not in the forest. They're in the big cities. So he wants to stay where they are and preach to them. So I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. This is something we all have to know. That you're not going to be happy with any amount of material things, with even a perfect marriage, perfect children, perfect job, perfect amount of money, more than you need. Everything is so wonderful. Even if it is so perfect, it isn't going to last. It's just temporary. But it's not going to be perfect because nobody in the material world has a perfect situation, because this world is constituted in that way. So I'm going to begin the purport. This is the decision of the Vaishnava, the pure devotee of the Lord. For himself, he has no problems, even if he has to stay in this material world, because his only business is to remain in Krishna consciousness. The Krishna conscious person can go even to hell and still be happy. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj said, Naivodrije para duratyaya vaitaranya. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence. Not afraid of material existence. The material, because wherever he is, he's Krishna conscious. He's happy in Krishna consciousness. It says even if he goes to hell, he's still happy. So the pure devotee is never unhappy in any condition of life. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28. But before I read that, he's not unhappy. His only unhappiness is seeing others unhappy. That's his only anxiety, his only distress, his only unhappiness is seeing others suffer. So in 6:17-28, Narayana parasarve nakutash chana bibyati svagapavarga narakeshva api tulyartha darshinaha. devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. So someone who is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, it doesn't matter where they are, whether they're in the heavenly planets, in this material world, in the hellish planets, or in the spiritual world. It doesn't matter because they're Krishna conscious. And when you're Krishna conscious, you're in the spiritual world because you're with Krishna. It's not a geographical location you have to come to. It's a question of consciousness. So for him, it doesn't matter. So he's willing to stay in the material world as long as he's serving Krishna, as long as he has an opportunity to serve. Lord Chaitanya prays that he just wants to serve Krishna. He doesn't care for woman, riches, followers. He just wants to serve, engage in devotional service. Birth after birth. He doesn't care if it takes birth again and again. It doesn't matter. Now, for us, we'd like to come to that point of Krishna consciousness. So we think we can, if we go to the spiritual world, then we'll be, and if it's a fact, if we go to the spiritual world, we'll be eternally happy. But we can be eternally happy even in the material world if we become fully Krishna conscious. And there's a process. And this is part of the process. Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. And the service of the Lord is to, like Prahlada Maharaj wants, is to bring other people back to Godhead. I mean, this is how you can please your spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada is pleased. Krishna is pleased. And the people who go back to Godhead are pleased. Everyone, it's a win-win situation if people become Krishna conscious. So we have to make an effort to help them become Krishna conscious. And the best way that Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta presented was to distribute books. By distributing these books, these Krishna conscious books, people will become devotees. Prabhupada also said in a war, they have a machine gun that shoots at the enemy. And there are some statistics that every so many bullets, one will hit the enemy. So like 99 bullets may be wasted and one hits. So similarly, if we distribute these books, as many as possible, even though some of them may not have an effect because people may not read them, whatever, and they still may have an effect in the future. Somebody may read it, but still some of them people read, and some of them, even the people who read them, may not get much. They get benefited. Prabhupada said even if they read one word, they're benefited. So they benefit, but they may not take to Krishna consciousness in this life, but they started their process. So we may not even see such results. But then some people actually become devotees by reading these books. So it's so important to distribute books. This is not my idea or some other devotees. It's actually Bhaktisiddhanta's idea. And most likely it's Bhakti Vinod's idea. But Bhaktisiddhanta was very much into the big mridanga is the printing press, to print books and distribute them. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, is following the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta, and that's how he was so successful in spreading Krishna consciousness. And we should be following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada in trying to distribute these books as much as possible so that we help these fallen conditioned souls. We know we may not be perfect, but still we can distribute these books because these are perfect. This is the perfect message. Prabhupada said, what would your 10-minute talk do? But if you give them a book, then they have it and they could take it home, then they could read it, and they could read it over. And it's all pure, perfect. So it's so important to distribute books. And now Prahlada Maharaj, this was millions of years ago, he wanted to help other souls, maybe not distributing books, maybe just preaching like he did with his friends in school. And he got them all to chant Hare Krishna. So we can do it that way too. So I'm going to read the next paragraph. For a devotee, being situated in the heavenly planets and being in the hellish planets are equal. For a devotee lives neither in heaven nor in hell, but with Krishna in the spiritual world. The secret of success for the devotee is not understood by the karmis and jnanis. Karmis, therefore, try to be happy by material adjustment, and jnanis want to be happy by becoming one with the Supreme. The devotee has no such interest. He is not interested in so-called meditation in the Himalayas or the forest. Rather, his interest is in the busiest part of the world, where he teaches people Krishna consciousness. So this is Srila Prabhupada's business. He came, he could have gone anywhere from India to spread Krishna consciousness. His guru says, preach to the English-speaking people. There were many countries that spoke English. There's, Australia, New Zealand, there's England, of course, and I'm sure there are many other countries where people spoke English as the main language. But he came to America because it was, at the time, it was the most powerful country. And if the people here became Krishna consciousness, then other people will follow that example. He landed in Boston, but Boston, he went from Boston to New York. And then he went to, don't tell me, Pennsylvania, but I'm thinking of the town.
Butler.
Who didn't hear me say, don't tell me? But I'm glad you told me because it wasn't coming. But he went to Butler, Pennsylvania. And then from there, he went to New York. He spent some time. He learned a little bit about what America is like. Then he went to New York, the biggest city, and certainly the biggest city in America. I don't know if it was the biggest city in the world at the time, but that's where he decided to go. Not only not to the Himalayas and not to the forest, not even to Butler, Pennsylvania was enough. It was, even though there was still a lot of people there, he could have preached, but he went to New York, busiest place. Now, I'm not trying to tell anybody to go to New York. We have other devotees in New York. We have to stay here. Prabhu Datta Desh, this is our preaching field, and we should try to make people Krishna conscious here in Connecticut. But this is the idea or the process in which we're supposed to follow, is not simply stay at home and hear and chant, but to preach Krishna consciousness, go out and preach. And I'm not recommending anyone to go out necessarily and preach now. We do some preaching, some devotees, but because of the pandemic, we're very, very restricted. But at least we can get that desire. It's all built on desire. If we desire and plan, then when this pandemic is over, we can start implementing those plans and spread Krishna consciousness. And even now, there's opportunities to distribute books. We'll get into that later. But goes to the busiest part of the world where he teaches people Krishna consciousness, not caring about himself. Prabhupada said once, you don't know how happy I was living in Vrindavan. Living in Vrindavan, he was so happy in the land of Krishna. He was in ecstasy. And then he made such sacrifices to come here. And he did it because this is what his guru had instructed him to do. And he knows you can't make advancement in spiritual life without following the instructions of your guru. So the Krishna consciousness movement was started for this purpose. We do not teach one to meditate in a secluded place just so that one may show that he has become very much advanced and may be proud of his so-called transcendental meditation, although he engages in all sorts of foolish materialistic activities. So people who practice yoga, sometimes they're proud. They're generally in very good physical shape, and they can bend in all sorts of ways, and they're vegetarians, and that's nice, but they're not necessarily, or they could be, but not necessarily are they Krishna conscious, and in most cases they are not. And they also become proud of their abilities that they have, and they meditate, but yet they do materialistic activities. They sometimes, anyway, we don't have to get into what the materialistic activities they do. A Vaishnava like Prahlada Maharaj is not interested in such a bluff of spiritual advancement. They're not spiritually advanced. They're just maybe a little more in the mode of goodness, but they're not spiritually advanced. Rather, he is interested in enlightening people in Krishna consciousness. That is the only way for them to become happy. So that's what we have to become convinced of. That not only for myself, the only way I can actually really become happy is by being Krishna conscious. But I have to know, it's not like, well, that's for me, but for somebody else, something else is good for them. No, the only thing that's going to make anyone really happy is Krishna consciousness. So that's what we have to try to do for everyone. I mean, we should try to do it, of course, for our family. But if our family is not interested, then we should do it for anyone and just pray for our family and try to help others become Krishna conscious. But that's what we have to do. That should be our consciousness, that I should be convinced the only thing that's going to make anyone happy is Krishna consciousness. I mean, other things may give somebody what is called chapala sukha, or flickering happiness. Their happiness is there. You get me something really nice and I'm really happy, but then it's gone. It's not real happiness. It's there and it's gone. It's not real. But real happiness is Krishna conscious. You can be happy all the time. And without Krishna consciousness, it is not possible to be happy all the time. You can be happy a little while, then you could be sad. There's manic depressive people, or they got another name for them, I think, today. But people sometimes, these are some people that have extreme happiness and then extreme depression. And most of us are moderate with our happiness and our depression. But we can be happy all the time. Even if we're not happy all the time because we're not Krishna conscious, we should at least become convinced that the only thing that's going to make me happy all the time is Krishna consciousness. Nothing else. And we can see there's some people who participate in these programs all the time, so many programs, that they're happier now than they were before they participated. Or even if they're not necessarily participating in these programs, they're reading at home. If you just make a test, a scientific test, take a week or a day, even a day, and just devote yourself to Krishna the whole day, hearing and chanting about Krishna and nothing else for the whole day, and see how you feel. You feel very good, because this is a spiritual activity and you're making spiritual advancement, and you are a spiritual being. You're not a material being. And just taking care of the shell is not going to make you happy. You have to take care of you within inside this shell, or within inside this cage. You have to take care of the bird. You just keep shining the cage isn't going to make you happy. So some of these other yogas, they just shine the cage and make the cage really nice and sparkly and so nice that other people, other souls who are in the cage see their cage and think, wow, that's really attractive. It's just a big illusion. It's not the person. It's just their cage or their body. So we have to know, we have to become convinced of this. And Prahlada Maharaj was, and Srila Prabhupada was, And not only was he convinced that the only way anyone could be happy is with Krishna consciousness, he felt it was his duty, his obligation to try to help them to become Krishna conscious, because he felt compassion to try to make everyone happy. So Prahlada Maharaj says clearly, Nanyam tvad asya sharanam bharatmato nupasye. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. He knows that. Like we at least should first start with theoretically knowing that. And then we have to become convinced. And the way we become convinced is by experiencing it ourselves. When we're Krishna conscious, we're happy. And no amount of sense gratification can bring us to that same happiness. So I have to also give this to other people so that they can become happy. And we shouldn't just make any distinctions with the other people. Anyone is fit. I mean, except for the out and out demon. And you don't know they're an out and out demon until you approach them. But if you find out they're an out and out demon, you go on to the next person. So one wanders within the universe, life after life, but by the grace of a devotee, a servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can get the clue of Krishna consciousness and then not only become happy in this world, but also return home back to Godhead. So we go throughout this universe, so many different bodies, a dog's body, a cat's body, a cow's body, a germ's body, all different types of bodies we wind up getting. And then we get the human form, and in the human form, we can actually understand God consciousness. I mean, this is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, I mean, even a lion can chant Hare Krishna, but by his mercy, his representatives can convert either lion-like people or animalistic people into devotees and become happy. One can get the clue of Krishna consciousness through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that not only become happy, this is interesting because it's not just, okay, now I'm happy. Not only happy in this world, but also return home back to Godhead. So this is what Prabhupada's saying. This is what we should do. And then we go back home, back to Godhead. And all we have to do is try to repay this gift that we've gotten that makes us happy and also gets us to go back home, back to Godhead by just giving it to other people. Not to go to the forest, not to go to the Himalayas, not to just sit home. Although right now, most of us, it's safer just to sit home. But after the pandemic, we have to try our best to preach Krishna consciousness. And the best way to preach is by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So that is the real target in life. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement are not at all interested in so-called meditation in the Himalayas or the forest, where one will only make a show of meditation. Nor are they interested in opening many schools for yoga and meditation in the cities. Now we have a lot of places that the temples that even teach yoga, maybe meditation, japa meditation, and it may have some success, but it's not the best way of preaching, because unless you're distributing books to all of these people, but it's to distribute books. But we're not interested in opening these things or teaching these things. We're interested in spreading Krishna consciousness. And we can use these things because anything can be used in Krishna's service. So we can use yoga by even teaching yoga in Krishna's service. But sometimes these bridge preaching, one becomes more affected by the other. So we have to be very strong and have some really staunch program for making devotees, not just making people a little bit more favorable, even that's good, We're trying to make devotees, trying to get people to give their life to Krishna, trying to get people to chant Hare Krishna, even at home, to read these books. So whatever works. So the yoga is like, they're very similar to us, so it might be an easier way to get in. But we have to try somehow or other. And if we distribute these books profusely, people will become devotees. Not the devotees, they don't make a show of meditation, nor are they interested in opening many schools for yoga and meditation in the cities. Rather, every member of the Krishna consciousness movement is interested in going door to door to try to convince people about the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. This is the purpose of the Hare Krishna movement. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be fully convinced that without Krishna, one cannot be happy. Again, the same point. We have to be convinced, fully convinced, that without Krishna, one cannot be happy. So we're not distributing these books to make a living. In most cases, we're not making much of a profit on the books anyway. We're not distributing these books for any other reason except to help the people so that they can become happy. Thus, the Krishna conscious person avoids all kinds of pseudo-spiritualists, transcendentalists, meditators, monists, philosophers, and philanthropists. We avoid all of these type of people, and we're simply interested only in devotees. I mean, we're interested in these people only to give them Krishna if they have any interest. But if they don't, we don't waste our time with them. So this is a very nice verse. I'll read the English again of the verse. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, I see that there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance. Not caring for the big cities and towns, they go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. So we have to become convinced of this. How to become convinced? I find the best way of what I would think is by experience. I mean, first class way of learning is by hearing. We hear Prabhupada say it, we should be convinced. But sometimes we may have to, the next best way is we surrender to Krishna, even if it's just an experiment we're doing for a week, we're doing for a day. I'm going to completely surrender and see what the results are, and we will become happy if you surrender to Krishna. Okay, so that's another way. Then you become convinced, yes, this makes people happy. Nothing else is going to really work, because I tried everything else and that doesn't work. Then the next way of learning is 4 ways, well, really 3. But the third way is that I see someone else that was in the mode of ignorance or was not happy, and now they're practicing Krishna consciousness, and then they're ecstatic. They look so blissful and happy. So I see this really works. So I can learn that way. First class way is learning is by hearing, second by experiencing, third by seeing others. And the fourth, after you seeing all these things, of course, you can't really use this example so much for learning about Krishna consciousness, because if you experimented yourself, you would know. But after the fourth class is that he just doesn't learn, doesn't see, doesn't experience, and just doesn't take advantage of Krishna consciousness. So we don't want to be in that class, but we want to at least learn how to be happy. We can see it. Other people are practicing, they become happy. I practice, even if I practice somewhat, I become happy. I feel good, even if I didn't really dedicate completely 24 hours to Krishna consciousness. Still, I feel ecstatic. And so I should learn from this. And Prabhupada said it, and every single thing Prabhupada says is true. Everything in his books is true. So we have to accept what Prabhupada says as the authority. He is the guru. He's everyone's guru, everyone's Shiksha guru. And he's our primary Shiksha guru. And everything in these books are completely accurate. Even if they're not accurate, it says that even if there's some fault, still one can achieve the same desired result. But we have to accept everything he says, just like when the guru says, there's a rope and he says it's a snake, kill it, it's a snake. You kill it, you try to kill it, it's a snake. Or if there's a snake and he says it's a rope, and he just, then you can take it and tie some knots. But in other words, we accept what the guru says better than our own imperfect senses, because his senses are not imperfect. The conditioned soul has imperfect senses. We have 4 defects. We're sure to be an illusion, imperfect senses, tendency to cheat, and what's the other one? Somebody. Okay, sure to be an illusion, a tendency to cheat, imperfect senses, and I can't think of it. Boy, I used to know things.
Making mistakes.
Cheating propensity.
Wait, I hear everybody at once, please, one at a time, because I can't hear anything then. Ganapati Govind, what did you say?
Cheating propensity.
What?
Cheating
I said cheating.
You did? Okay. Sorry, Prabhu.
Tendency to cheat, sure to
I
be
said
an illusion, imperfect senses.
tendency to make mistakes. I don't know,
Make
is that a-
mistakes, yeah,
yeah.
that's it. Yeah, see, I made a mistake. So we have these defects, but the liberated soul doesn't have these defects. So he's not cheating us. Even if he cheats us to give us Krishna consciousness, that's not cheating. So we have, I don't know exactly what we have a special thing we're doing is we're trying to distribute a lot of Bhagavad Gitas. So this is the best preaching, giving Bhagavad Gita as it is to different conditioned souls. And people can sponsor a case, if anybody's interested in sponsoring a case of Bhagavad Gitas. For a hardbound, there are there 12 copies?
16 copies in a box, Prabhuji.
16 for the hardbound, and that's $125 for a case. And then there's what, 20, 24?
24.
Softbound for $108. I remember the money, I just didn't remember how many books were in the case. But if anybody is interested, it's an excellent way of helping to spread Krishna consciousness. And it's following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. He stressed book distribution more than he stressed anything else. There are so many kinds of preaching, but book distribution is by far the most stressed. When Prabhupada was here, he stressed book distribution more than anything else. And devotees are finally, doing it a lot more nowadays than they did sometime after Prabhupada left. It slowed down a lot, but now it's getting back up. People are realizing what's lacking, and that's the best way to spread Krishna consciousness. So if anyone can, they can actually contact me or Ganapati Govind if they're interested in sponsoring. And when they sponsor these books, then we distribute the books to different places, sometimes libraries, sometimes prisons, in different areas. So I have a lot of time left. If anybody has any questions or comments.
125, how many books is there?
16 books, Prabhuji.
What?
I think Satyen Prabhu was asking how many books are there for 125. So for 125, it's a hardcover.
Hardcover, 16. 108, soft covered. Soft covered doesn't have the Sanskrit?
Yes, Prabhuji, the Sanskrit, the Devanagari script is not there, and it's the font is a little smaller.
Okay, so Devanagari isn't there, but the pronunciation is there.
Right.
Okay.
The English transliteration is there.
Yeah, so most people don't know the Sanskrit, but if you know it, you know, when you have people who know some of it, because Indian people may have studied some Sanskrit. So it's just to show how authoritative it is. It's probably better to go with the hard brown ones.
So I think Prabhuji, even the pictures are not present on the soft one, right? Ganpati Gun Prabhu?
Prabhu, the pictures are there, but little less pictures are there. Not so
Less
many.
pictures,
Hard
yeah,
copy.
right.
Less pictures, smaller fonts, no Devanagari, and soft cover. But either one, people will become devotees. They read it sincerely. People get into a different times in their life when they may start to question things. Why am I here? Why am I suffering? What's the purpose of life? You know, and then at that time they get a Bhagavad Gita and they answer, their questions will be answered. One lady, this was years ago, you know, some Western lady said, this book puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, and this was just out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't like a big city. We do traveling Sankirtan. You know, we go to towns, you know, at least 10,000 people. So even everywhere people are searching. We have to learn to distribute to everyone. But anyway, that's a good opportunity. But any questions or comments, either
a
on the
comment.
books or on what I read and said?
I have a comment on what you said.
What's your comment?
So you said Srila Prabhupada, of all the English-speaking countries, picked America, and rather than going to even like Butler, Pennsylvania, went to New York City, far cry from the Himalayas. And not only did he go to New York City, he went to the Bowery, the east side.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's full of
People might not know the
alcoholics.
Bowery. I come from New York, and when I came from New York, the Bowery, and I come from Brooklyn. If you went to Brooklyn, you would think it's terrible.
Right.
We living in Brooklyn thought the Bowery was really, really terrible. It was
Right.
it's
With
really
alcoholics and drug addicts. But at the same time, it
not
had
so
the
much the drug addicts at that time. They were alcoholics.
but at the same time, it had the counterculture of musicians and artists and hippies, and that was fertile ground for Srila Prabhupada to preach. It turned out. So he actually picked the best place at the time for preaching, I think.
I don't think there was so much in the Bowery itself.
No?
But
Lower East Side, I think they called
Lower
it. Right?
East Side, yes, but
Yeah.
that's not where we went to. Matchless Gifts, that wasn't the Bowery.
Oh, I see. Okay, that was okay.
Yeah,
I'm
but they did go
confusing.
to the Bowery first,
Mm.
and it's the lowest of the low. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, India, you have some really, really low places, but still, the people aren't all alcoholics. You go to the place, and alcoholics are pretty bad. But even these alcoholics made some advancement. I mean, they one time, one alcoholic bum on the street, he came into the temple at 22nd Avenue, and he walked up to Prabhupada. And he brought a roll of toilet paper and put it down somewhere, like a new roll of toilet paper. And then he walked out, and people were like upset or offended. Why does he, who does he think he is? Why is he? And Prabhupada said that he just begun his spiritual life. He gave something for Krishna. I mean, not that Krishna's using toilet paper, but he gave something. So Prabhupada seen the good. And Prabhupada said he never was afraid in the Bowery. The bums he have to walk over bums to get into his apartment.
Yeah, and didn't Brahmananda live there? Brahmananda was there, right? At the Bowery?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because
No.
somewhere he said that even mice were like running over him when he was sleeping in the night. So I don't know whether it was the Bowery or the Lower East Side. I can't remember.
I think it was probably the Bowery. But anyway, he did that he did go there. And it's the really no way. I don't know what it's like nowadays. It's probably not much better, but it was very bad at that time, really bad.
Pyari Prabhu, was it a conscious decision to choose Bowery, or it just happened to be? I know New
I think it
York was
just happened. I don't think he picked the Bowery, but it just happened. That's what he could afford, or whatever the reason. I don't really know. He also had a free place there with some crazy guy.
But
And the
New
guy-
York was a conscious decision, and US was a conscious decision, right? He picked US and he picked New York.
Yes, yes, those were. But where in New York, that wasn't.
I think one of his early disciples, maybe Mukunda Maharaj and Janaki were living there. Somebody, one man and one woman were living there, and they gave that place to him to live rent free. That's why he stayed there.
He didn't stay with them.
He stayed with a couple, somebody in another room, in another place, right by there, either
No,
below their apartment or above their apartment.
No, he stayed with some crazy guy somewhere in the Bowery. Then the
I know,
guy
but
went
that
crazy.
was a musician. There was a musician there, and then that guy.
No. He ran away to Mukunda and Janaki's house when somebody tried to kill him where he was staying in the
Right.
Bowery.
He went to their house and he told them
Yeah.
what happened, and they took him, and then
Yeah.
they found a place for him. That was Mukunda. I mean,
Yeah, that was
they weren't
Mukunda and
initiated.
Janaki. Yeah.
So Mukunda was around. He was one of the earliest devotees. But most of the others all came from 26 Second Avenue. Except for Mukunda. I don't know, maybe there was more than Mukunda, I don't know. But anyway, he came to the city, not to the Himalayas, not to Vrindavan even, where he was, and he was totally satisfied, living in a temple, living at Radha Damodar temple. You know, what better place can you be in this? That's the spiritual world, fully Krishna conscious. And he left there voluntarily, went through so much trouble to get out of the country. He was so upset with Indian government. They made it so difficult for him to leave because they didn't have enough people in India. That was a joke. I have to tell people because I don't ever hear if anybody gets it or not.
I got it and I laughed.
Okay, thank you.
I thought, I was thinking, or they thought he might be going to spy in America or something at that age.
Yeah, they made it so hard. Then when he finally went, and then it went by boat, a freighter, not a cabin cruiser, not one of these vacation ships that you go on that cross it was a freighter with one room for someone else to stay. And they gave that room. They were bringing freight. It's amazing what he went through just to try to help others to become happy. But it worked.
But look at the name of that ship. That is pretty amazing too.
The Jaladuta?
Yes, yeah, it means like the messenger on the sea, messenger on the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, and matchless gifts.
And matchless gifts, yes, exactly.
The store was named Matchless Gifts, and it had that name there. And they went out of business, and Prabhupada rented that place. And there's no greater gift than Krishna consciousness. It's matchless. There's nothing that can compare to it. Yeah, Krishna has a sense of humor.
I know, right? There's not coincidences here.
Okay, no questions?
Pyari Prabhu, actually, I just put in my alumni network that people would like to sponsor Bhagavad Gita.
But I'm sorry, but I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, for the Bhagavad Gita donation, I
Yes.
just put that message in my school alumni network.
Yeah.
And I found a sponsor. He wants to sponsor a box. I was wondering, is there a online payment method? So it's easy for them.
Well, Ganapati Govinda could probably help you more, but you can do through PayPal, they take a percentage, but or Facebook also.
Okay.
And you can talk to Ganapati Govinda, he would know better.
Yeah, Ganapati Govind Prabhu, our website is saying it's not a safe website. ISKCON CT. Can
I
someone
know,
check that?
I know. We talked about changing that and we still haven't done it and I don't know why.
So Prabhu, even instead of going through Facebook, I mean the website, right? The website only redirect to PayPal, so you can directly go to the PayPal and pay the donation. That link we can provide you directly.
Okay, thank you. But I think the website, if someone can fix the website, it's easy to.
Yeah, that's we are working, Prabhu. That needs to sort of solve few things, so that will be also taken care quickly. But in the meantime, you can pay through PayPal directly.
Sure. Thank you.
Prabhu, I'll send you the PayPal link.
Okay.
Okay, any questions at all on anything I read or said? Okay, any questions on purchasing Bhagavad Gitas? And spreading Krishna consciousness, making people happy, and making yourself happy. Any questions?
Talking about happiness, you said as soon as you take to Krishna consciousness, you're happy, but not all devotees seem happy all the time.
No, I didn't say as soon as you take the Krishna. I said if you make an experiment and completely surrender, even for one day, you'll be happy. That means hearing and chanting all day, doing service all day, not committing offenses, not finding faults, not thinking of your relatives, thinking of shopping, thinking of anything else. Just really, when you think of something else, you bring it back immediately to Krishna. And just for one day, do that and you'll be happy. That's what I said.
Yeah, that I agree, yeah.
No, but the problem is the next day you might not. So then, but at least then you become convinced it works. I just have to apply it to my life.
It does work for the duration. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and you're not, there's no loss. That benefit stays with you eternally. So I'm laughing because we talk about happiness, and what comes to my mind is an old song from the 60s. It's, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, never make a pretty woman your wife. And there's more to it than that. But if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, become Krishna conscious. That's the answer.
I was going to say that one of the happiest times in my life was when I went with Jiva and just left my husband, kid, everything behind. We had a really good time, at least for a week.
Yeah,
just chanting and thinking about Krishna.
So if you ladies out there want to be happy, just leave your husbands and hear and chant about Krishna for a week.
It works.
And we have, what do they call it when people
retreat?
No, when they say how, this works. Oh, this example. Oh, I can't think of it. You know what they call them? Like they're verifying it. They're
proof of concept, or I don't know that one.
Anyway.
Oh, I know what you're trying to say. I can't get the word either.
Proof of the pudding is in eating, is that?
No.
Yeah, that's true, but it's not.
No, before we do the project, what do we do? Like, what did they call that?
Oh, pilot.
Not even pilot, like a model.
Proof of concept.
No, yeah, like proof of concept, but it's also called something else. I can't get the word now.
So I have a question on happiness.
Prototype.
Okay.
Prototype, exactly. Yeah, it's just prototype.
What's the question on happiness?
Yeah, so Pyari Prabhu, you mentioned, and I've read it and heard it also, like if we chant, we'll be, we become happy. But there's some sort of anxiety that comes along with like when we are chanting, finishing our daily rounds. It seems like there's some anxiety that comes with it, that comes with it. Oh, I got so many rounds left and the time is running out and things like that. So in all that, the experience of happiness is not very apparent. So like, are we supposed to take this, like, is this literally like, it's not like somebody chants and he becomes really happy, or is it like chanting in the purest form and then you become happy? Like how should we understand?
Yeah, apparently you're chanting, thinking, oh, I got so many things, so much I have to chant. You have to chant just to try to hear the chanting. You should be thinking like that. Just try to experience. You have to surrender to the chanting. Not just mechanically, just do it just to get the rounds done. Krishna wants you to go more than that. He wants you to actually experience the holy name. Associate with the holy name purely by just having only the holy name and not thinking about other things and looking at this and that. I mean, everyone who chants japa, their mind wanders on different things. So your mind might just be wandering on the rounds itself that you have to do, but you're thinking of that instead of hearing the holy name. So Krishna wants us to, but when I'm saying is surrendering to, for one day, that's chanting. You can chant so much, but each round, I got all day, I'm not doing anything else. I don't have to think about if I'm going to get my rounds done. You don't have all day. You have so many things to do. So therefore you might be in anxiety about it. But even that, better you don't think about it. Better you chant your rounds. And after you put down one more bead, then you can see how many rounds you have. And just keep chanting. And try to hear. Try not to think about how much you got. It's not easy, but it's a pure way of chanting.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has had this experience. If I'm thinking about how many rounds I have to do and I'm like thinking about the number of rounds, the less rounds I finish. And if I'm not thinking about the number of rounds I'm doing and I'm like just really chanting, deeply, then I finish a lot more rounds. I don't know. I've had that experience.
Yeah, it's like a watch pot never boils.
Never boy, exactly. The more I think about how many rounds I have, the less rounds I finish. The more I don't think about the number of rounds, the more rounds I finish. I've had that experience quite a lot.
I mean, the rounds is one part of it. Reading is another part. I find I read to Jiva while she's on the altar and stuff like that. And it's really nice because I'm reading out loud. She's hearing it. Sometimes we question certain things, try to understand it. Not that we question like that's wrong. We question is how are we to understand this? We first of all always accept everything as a fact. Although sometimes we find some little grammatical errors. But it's time. It's time for Arti. Sorry. Jiva just very, very, as you can tell, very subtly is letting me know. Hare Krishna. Anshakapatu Vishchaki Visinavi
Just till we get there. I thought you were kind of done. That's why I.
श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। कि जय जय गौर चंदे आरती का शोभा जय जय गौर चंदे आरती का शोभा वितट बने जगमान लोभा जहान वितट बने जगमान लोभा दक्षिण नितांजन वामे गदाधार दक्षिण नितांजन वामे गदाधार निकटे अद्वैत श्रेणी वास छत्रधर निकटे अद्वैत श्रेणी वास छत्रधर बसियाचे गौराचान रत्न सिंहासने बसियाचे गौराचान रत्न सिंहासने आरती करे ना ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गाने आदिदेव गाने नर हरे आदि करे चामर ढोलाय नर हरे आदि करे चामर ढोलाय संजय मुकुंद घोषादिगाय संजय मुकुंद वासु घोषादिगाय शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताल शंख बाजे बाजे करताल माधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाल माधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाल शंका बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर मधुर माधुर बाजे 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 माधुर मधुर माधुर बाजे माधुर मधुर माधुर जय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल शिव बहु कोटि चंद्र जिने बदन उज्ज्वल बहु कोटि चंद्र जिने बदन उज्ज्वल Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Kishore Kishori 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Parabrajakacara Jasatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shilabhai Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Parabrajakacara Jasatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anatakoti Vaishnava Rinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mahi Ki Jai. Jamuna Mahi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Lord Nrsimha Deva Ki Jai. Shri Shalagram Shilas Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Dayine Prahlada Dayine Hiranyakasi Purvashaha Hiranyakasi Purvashaha Shilatanka nakhalaye Shilatanka nakhalaye Rito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Rito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Yeto yeto yami tato Nrsimha Yeto yeto yami tato Nrsimha Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Tava Kara Kamala Bare Nakha Adbhuta Sringa Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabhranga Te Savadruta Narari Rupa जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमल बरे नखा अद्भुत शृंगार ललिता हिरण्यकशिपो तनभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद नरसिंह भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंद
हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा
Hare Krishna.
Very much everybody for joining us for our Sunday program this evening. Very beautifully decked up deities, beautiful garlands. Thank you for the darshan, Prabhuji. Rashraj Prabhu, once we are done with deity darshan, you can just let me share my screen. Anyway, I think I'll continue because we don't want to interrupt the deity darshan. So our program sponsors for this evening are Damodar Swarup Prabhuji, Padmalochini Mataji, Tulsi and family, who are sponsoring for Prabhuji's father, Sri Mahendra Singh. Hari Bol! We have Anonymous, who is sponsoring for all the COVID-19 patients. Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.
We have Anu O'Brien Mataji and family, who are sponsoring for her grandfather, Sri Sheshagiri Pai. Hari Bol! And we have Anand Gauranga Prabhuji, Amrit Keli Mataji, Krishangi, Dhanya Gopi and family, who are sponsoring to thank Lord Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra Devi for Krishangi's successful surgery and to thank all devotees for their blessings, prayers and support. Hari Bol!
Hari Bol!
So just a quick reminder of our upcoming programs. We have Ekadashi coming up this Thursday, December 10th.
Hari Bol!
Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.
It is recommended for those of us who can to fast from grains and beans and engage in more spiritual activities like reading more of Srila Prabhupada's books. Fast break is the day after on Friday, December 11th, and we are having our special Ekadashi Bhajan Kirtan program in the evening of December 10th from 6 to 7. If anyone else is interested in sponsoring, you can be one of the sponsors for only $125. And for that, you can contact His Grace Pyari Mohan Prabhuji or Her Grace Jiva Mataji at the temple phone number. Our regular fee sponsorship is only $125. And for special programs, we'll be sending you a separate notification. We have World Gita Day coming up on 25th of December. Hari Bol! And as we have been communicating to you, this time, there is an initiative to distribute 2 million Gitas worldwide. And as part of North America Sankirtan team, they have taken a pledge to distribute about 100,000 Bhagavad Gitas. And we are also trying to share with them our responsibility as part of ISKCON of Connecticut to distribute as many Bhagavad Gitas as possible. I think Pyare Prabhuji already touched upon the special promotions that we have for World Gita Day. Hardcover books, hardcover cases of 16 books are available for only $125, and softcover books cases of 24 books in each case are available for $108. So if any one of you are interested, you can contact Ganapati Govind Prabhuji or Pyare Mohan Prabhu Jiva Mataji. We are having a host of online programs running. You can find the details online on our temple website. We have, for those of you who have not yet been participating in some of these, there are very interesting programs running. So please try to make every endeavor to join most of these programs. It will be a really enriching experience. And the details are available on our temple website. It's our standard temple Zoom, the same Zoom link that we are using now for all of the programs. And now we will move over to more chanting for our program sponsors for this evening. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Gaurani Thai, 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 Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, 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 Jaya Lakshmi Narsimha, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki Jai.
Jai,
Gaurani Thai ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai,
Narsimha Dev Bhagwan ki
An
Jai.
Ki Jai,
Raj Maharaj ki
An Ki
Jai.
Jai,
Prabhupada ki Jai.
Ki Jai,
Koti Vaishnav ki Jai.
Ki Jai,
Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Om Hari Hari Bol.
Wonderful Kirtan ki Jai.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Our sponsors and beneficiaries ki Jai. Damodar Swarup Prabhuji, Padmalochini Mataji, Tulsi and family ki Jai. Mahendra Singh Prabhu ki Jai. Anonymous ki Jai. All COVID-19 patients, quick recovery ki Jai. O'Brien Mataji and family ki Jai. Sheshagiri Pai Prabhuji ki Jai. Anand Gauranga Prabhuji, Amrit Keli Mataji, Dhanya Gopi, and our little Vaishnavi Krishangi ki Jai. Lord Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Devi ki Jai. All devotees ki Jai. Thank you very much again, everyone, for joining us today for our online program. We are now taking a closer darshan before we conclude our program today. So please partake darshan, and we hope to see you again in our upcoming programs. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. We have another program coming up. So thank you, everyone. I'm closing the Zoom session now. Hare Krishna.